This is a video of an interview with Jim Bendt, owner of Peak Travel. With 15 years of experience in the travel industry, Jim has a deep knowledge of what it takes to craft an extraordinary experience for your next trip. We also covered trends that will help over 55 travelers maximize satisfaction and avoid pitfalls while on the road. Today, I have Jim Bendt from Peak Travel. And Jim is going to talk a bit about the changes in the travel industry, trends, and that kind of thing for in the age 55 plus demographic. Welcome, Jim.
Thanks for having me.
Jim, can you tell us a little bit about your background and how long Peak Travel's been in business and so forth?
Great. Well, I'm actually known as a career switcher, which is what most of this industry today involves. I spent a lot of my career in branding, and I owned a branding agency. And about 15 years ago, after I sold that company, I was looking for my next, new thing, and I fell into the travel industry. And what I liked about it at that time is the industry was going through a change where it was less of a transactional model, which is what the internet is today, and it became much more of a professional service model. So for 15 years, I've now been the owner of a travel agency, within the network.
Great. Now, one thing that I've always thought is that we have travel agency, and in the past, I've always heard the term travel agent, but I understand that that's not the term that's used today.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. Certainly travel agents, maybe many of us remember when we used to get an airline ticket or wanted to book a hotel before the internet, the travel agent was the way to make that happen. And so it was much more of a transactional model. You'd call up your travel agent to book that for you. But with the internet, simple things like booking an airline ticket or a hotel became easy, and so that's a good place for people to book those types of things. What the internet doesn't do is give professional service and advice. So I guess the best analogy I would use is there used to be stockbrokers that are now
Hmm.
wealth advisors. So
Yes.
travel is the same thing where there used to be travel agents, but now we're travel advisors, bringing more of that professional consultancy aspect to things.
Okay. So this has risen with like you mentioned, the online ability to book and things like that. I think it probably was kind of a rough transition. And I think since you've been in the business about 15 years, you've seen that happen real time.
Yeah, we really have. And it's not that one is right and the other is wrong. They both serve different purposes. I think that if you're the type of traveler that this is a hobby and you love to spend hours researching and planning and doing your trip, doing it through an online travel agency like Expedia is perfectly fine. However, what we find is there's another portion of the population that loves to dream and anticipate travel, but doesn't love the logistics of doing all that research, trying to sort through what reviews are accurate and which ones aren't. And they would
Yeah.
prefer to work with a professional that can help guide them through that.
Okay. Okay. So taking up on that point, how does someone benefit from using a travel agent? Pardon me, travel advisor.
Yeah, I think travel advisors are really meant for people that appreciate working with somebody having that human connection. Sometimes we get caught up in just reading online reviews, which there's so many nowadays. There's for every good review, there's a bad review. You don't know what's going to be accurate. So what we like to do is listen, understand what our clients are like, what's their travel DNA, and then have conversations about the possibilities. And so it's really more that human connection piece, and knowing that we now have the connections all over the world to really make what they're thinking and maybe what they're not thinking. A lot of times they come to us without an idea, but we can help design amazing experiences they didn't know existed.
Okay. Do you think a travel advisor would be more likely to be advising on a domestic or an international trip? I'm guessing international.
Yeah, I would say that prior to COVID, the best use of using a travel advisor is if you were traveling internationally, because oftentimes, those are places that people might not feel as comfortable planning, and there's nothing worse than spending all this time planning a vacation, getting there, and seeing that that hotel room doesn't match the pictures online.
Yeah.
Our vacation time is so precious. We want to make sure that every day is perfect. So certainly prior to COVID, a lot of it was outside of the U.S. But then coming out of COVID, when we were really stuck traveling within the United States, our knowledge grew tremendously as well. So now we've discovered all these really interesting pockets in the US where we can do things very creatively, much like what we would do with an international trip.
Okay. You mentioned COVID, which has had a huge impact on the travel industry. Coming out of COVID, have there been any changes, do you think, that have, because of COVID, stay with the travel industry as a result of that?
Yeah, it was really interesting. Obviously, all of us thought this was going to be a 3 or 6 month blip, on the
Yeah.
on the calendar, and it wasn't. But having gone through our own trials and tribulations during that time, and looking at all my peers that are out there, I was expecting that we would see a lot of people get out of the business. But it goes to show how resilient this business is. I don't know of one travel agency peer that has closed.
Wow.
And if anything, all of us now are seeing just rampant growth
Mhm.
because, again, a lot of people had planned their own trips prior to COVID, and then they didn't have a safety net. And so they had to figure out, how do I get a refund? How do I get a future travel credit? How do I navigate these things? So just having a travel advisor as your safety net if things don't go right on vacation is really a key thing that people are looking for these days.
Oh, okay. So that's a good point. If I'm on a trip that an advisor has helped me put together, and I have some difficulty during the trip that I need some assistance, how can the travel advisor help?
Well, it really comes down to the travel advisor that you're working with. So when you set up that call, just ask questions like, "Have you been to this destination before?
Hmm. Hmm.
What are the contacts that you're using there?" At Peak Travel, we really pride ourselves on having what we feel is the best little black book in the industry. And what that allows us to do is, when I brief my clients before they leave on a trip, I tell them, I want to know if there's anything that doesn't meet your expectation, because you shouldn't just have to deal with that while you're on vacation. If your hotel room happens to have a lot of noise going on outside because there was a corporate event we didn't know about going on, please let me know and I'll reach out to the GM and we'll move you to another room. So we can help course correct so that it doesn't ruin your vacation. And that's important because you have 7 or 10 days to enjoy a vacation. You don't want to miss one day where
Yep.
it's not meeting the expectation.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I remember in the past that for the travel agent and now advisor, that there was the fees were usually covered by a system whereby the destination or the airline would fund you, and the traveler didn't have to pay anything. Was that really the case, or did people have to pay fees in the past? And now tell us what's happened in the current time.
Yeah. So yeah, we believe in full transparency. It should be a
Yeah,
surprise how we make money. And
yeah.
so we are paid by the hotels and the tour companies that we work with. The airlines no longer really pay commission,
Oh,
and
okay.
that's a lot of it. That was one of the big changes. Is it used to be the travel agencies that did that, so there was commission, but now a lot of that has gone direct, which is fine. So what we offer to our clients is we do charge an upfront planning fee of $250. And
Hmm.
what that does is that covers our upfront time to work with our clients to design that initial itinerary.
Hmm.
But that's the only upfront fee that they pay. And then the remaining portion of the trip, we're compensated by our hotel partners,
Okay.
that we work with.
Okay. And I think that's reasonable personally. But if someone was hesitant about paying a fee like that, what would you say is the features and benefits of that, what that 250 would buy you?
I just have to pause it for 1 second. There's a background noise I have to turn off.
Okay. Okay.
Okay.
No worries. No worries. They'll edit that out. Yeah.
Yeah, and one of the reasons why we charge the 250 fee is it does take a lot of time for us to research and plan the trip, and so that covers our upfront costs there.
Hmm.
But we also wanted to have sensible pricing. There are other travel agencies that may charge 500. Some even do annual retainers where they're charging 5,000. So
Wow.
it just depends on the agency, and really asking those questions up front so that there's transparency, that you know about what they're going to provide.
I'd say in some respects too, as a consumer, I'd say, well, I feel like I'm putting some money toward kind of like insurance in a way. It's not insurance, but I mean, it's kind of like I'm managing my risks because if I did this on my own, I'm liable to make a mistake. Whereas if I work with a professional who deserves to be compensated, I will probably get a better product, that being a trip that has fewer problems.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a really good way to look at it. Is I think the biggest benefit that we provide is you have someone to reach out to with
Yeah.
questions. It's not always like, hopefully, 99% of our trips go off without a hitch, but we are that safety net. But when you book something online, who do you reach out to for questions? There is no customer
Yeah.
support line,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
you're kind of on your own, and you hope you made the right choices. So yeah, we feel like it's a small investment, but an important one that has a big difference in the outcome.
Yes, money well spent. So Cantissimo Senior Living really focuses on the 55 plus demographic. And as you know, and that's the baby boomer generation these days, that is a generation that was those who had retired during COVID had to put travel plans, if they were interested in that, put those on hold. And now they're ready to get out there and travel. Thinking back over your 15 years, how have you seen that older demographic that retires and is interested in traveling? How has that kind of changed in the kind of trips that they want to take and the kind of experiences they're looking for?
Yeah, that's a great question. We have seen a lot of change, and age is not a factor anymore. I mean, we have 70-year-olds that we've had trek up to the top of Mount Kilimanjaro, do gorilla
Oh,
treks. I mean, do kinds of all kinds of active things, and so really it's more about a mindset, and then making sure that the partners that we have on the ground are working with our clients around their particular needs. So certainly dietary preferences, mobility needs. What is the comfort level of the accommodations that are going to be there? Those are all things that we are really adept at and get to know, so that we can make sure that the experience people have in their heads is what's delivered on the ground. So we've seen just a huge surge in travel. The one piece of advice I would give is that there is so much pent up travel demand, right now after COVID,
mhm.
that it's really important to maybe write down the next three places that you're interested in going,
Uh,
kind of create your own wander list, as we like to call it,
mhm.
and then start planning that 12 months in advance. We've
Great.
gotten to the point where a month ago we did a stop sell on Europe. So we will not, do trips June through August of this year,
Wow.
because in our opinion, all of our best guides, our best hotels are already sold out. So we don't want to
Yeah.
sell somebody on an experience that we know we can't stand behind. So
Sure.
planning in advance is really, really an important thing for people to do.
Okay. And it sounds you mentioned three places. Do you think it's a good idea for people to have a list of potential places so that you can say, oh, of the three you've just mentioned, this is one that's really primo and you should go for this. Is that the kind of thing that would help an advisor?
Yeah, I mean, I say three because three is kind of an easy number.
Yeah.
If you have a top 10 list, that's a great thing to start a conversation off with an advisor, because there's all kinds of unique things we can do with that. We can talk about seasonality. So you may say, hey, I really want to go to Italy, but I'm free to travel, January through March. So is that really going to be the best place for you? Actually, Italy is very nice that time of year. There's not a lot of crowds, but we talk about what that experience is like.
Mhm.
Or we may have an alternate idea that we could share. That's where advisors are really good, as they take seasonality into account, and we usually don't recommend peak season times,
Yeah.
because Rome in 90-degree weather with thousands of tourists isn't the best time to go. Now October, November,
Yeah.
pretty special. So
Yeah.
it opens up those conversations, so that you can be more strategic about your planning.
Um, and that's great advice. And another thought I had about the 55 plus baby boom generation right now. I've heard from just friends that they're more apt or willing to do more adventurous, active type of vacations. And is that a trend that you've seen as well?
It really is. So, being active on a trip has lots of different meanings, right? So what we're seeing is there's been a huge explosion in active small group trips that you can do. So companies like a Tauk, like an Abercrombie and Kent, even a Backroads, which are biking tours. And what I love about them is it doesn't mean that you need to be fully active every day, all day. It means that they're going to have active experiences that you can do. And then they tend to group people based upon their level of activity that they want. So active might mean I would like to do a walking tour of some of the street markets, or and that might work for one group. Or another group is I want to go bike 10, 15 miles and do that. So a lot of companies have become really good at offering active experiences, but again, not meaning that you're going to be doing these real high adventure types of things.
Sure. Another thing for the demographic is single people, solo travelers. Is that something that your advisors can help with as well for someone who wants to travel by themselves?
Yeah, it's actually becoming a really big need that we've seen out there with our own clients and then also the industry. And historically speaking, it was really hard for solo travelers because of cost. If you were to look at doing, let's say a small ship luxury cruise, they'd have a single supplement of 50, 75, 100% of the cost, for one person. So what I just had some meetings today, what a lot of these small ship cruise companies are doing is they've picked, maybe 50 different sailing dates where there's no single supplement on it.
Mhm.
And one of the things with solo travel is it doesn't mean it's lonely travel. That's oftentimes what people are like, am I going to meet other like-minded people? That's why we really love these small ship luxury cruises. When I say that, they're under 500 people on a ship. So if you haven't sailed before, think of them as like a boutique hotel where you
Sure.
never have to pack and unpack. And it
Hmm.
takes you to all these really interesting places where you get the full day to explore. But what's nice as a solo traveler is you have a built-in community there where you're going to meet other
Yes.
like-minded travelers. And
Yes.
so like that's a really good environment to consider. And we are seeing more of those cruise partners now recognizing that and not doing, increased single supplements to welcome that group.
Great. And then thinking of cruises, the regular type of larger cruises and things like that. A lot of folks in the 55 plus demographic may be a little bit leery because of COVID and norovirus and things like that. Have the cruise lines responded to that situation a little more aggressively?
They have. All COVID restrictions have been lifted, on the cruise lines. The one thing I will say, just about the cruises, I know that they were the headlines in a lot of the news around COVID, because there is nothing more fearful than being stuck on a cruise ship, when there's a COVID outbreak. In fairness, though, the same reports weren't done around hotels and other things. And so
Yeah.
when you think about an all-inclusive hotel in the Caribbean, there's a lot more people on that than there were on a cruise ship. It just wasn't the headlines of the news.
Mm.
So, but we never try to convince anyone to do anything where if that is a fear, then that's not a thing to do. Where
Mhm.
our sweet spot is we really like to focus on the cruise ships that are under 500 people.
Yes.
And the reason for it is I'll use that boutique hotel analogy again, is they are not cruise ships with portholes and cheesy Las Vegas shows and those types of things. They are really designed to feel like a boutique hotel. So there's one company called Explora Cruise Lines, which just came out this year. They don't even have a ballroom.
Mm.
And the reason is they don't want to have cabaret shows. So what they've done is they've designed it like a hotel, where in the bar area you're going to have someone in the corner playing the guitar. They're
Okay.
going to have other coffee shop areas where you can hang out. So that whole world, since COVID, has dramatically changed, where they're going to feel much more like a hotel than a
Mhm.
cruise if you're in that under 500 person level.
Cool. And just to wrap up, thinking about the travel agency industry and the advisors, what do you think some future trends will be? business as usual, or what are some things that might change as we go forward?
Yeah, it's really interesting. I love it when there's always something new, and the pundits say that that's the end of the travel agency industry. Artificial intelligence, AI, which is all over the news right
Yeah.
now. And the way that we view things is we view technology as a good thing. I don't view online travel agencies like Expedia as competition because they offer a different service promise to clients than what we do. Same thing with AI. If I and we've done this, we go in and we say, "Hey, design an itinerary to Italy," and I look at them, I'm like, "Oh my gosh, logistically, who would want to be bouncing around this much? That doesn't make any sense." And so where we think there will always be a need for a travel advisor is for people that want to have that human connection, have a conversation, have someone that can be an active listener, get to know who you are, and then make sure that they have the connections on the ground. So if something doesn't go right, we can pick up the phone, talk to the general manager, and get it fixed. That's a hard thing for technology to compete with. So we're really bullish on where the future is. And if I take a look at the number of trip inquiries we get now, it's we had our best year ever, and 2019 was a record year for the industry.
Mhm.
2022 was better than 2019.
Mhm.
So seeing the leads that are coming in from new client inquiries is very high. And then what's always encouraging is what's that next generation of people that want to get into the industry. I get about 150 inquiries a year for people that want to have a career in travel.
Wow.
So two very robust things, seeing the demand as a new career because people see it now as a profession that's about professional service and advice, which is great. And then clients that are seeking, that advice.
Great, great. Well, thank you, Jim Bendt of Peak Travel. Appreciate your insight and your expertise. We will be showing on the screen below here your website so that people can get in touch with your organization if they have future travel plans. So thanks for your time today.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
Okay.